So iZettle is a mobile payments company. Effectively, what we do is we empower anyone, individuals, small businesses, bigger businesses, to take card payments with their smartphone or tablet and a card payment device that you attach. And the biggest difference for us compared to the rest of the industry is that we are only sort of a pay-as-you-go solution. So you don't pay any fixed fees, you don't pay any monthly fees or anything like that. It was a problem that my wife made me aware of, actually. She runs a small business. She explained to me the problem for a small business to get a card terminal infrastructure based on the pricing at that time from banks, and the banks only going after bigger businesses. So when she made me aware that that was more or less impossible for a small business to have card payment terminals, we started looking into what we could do different in order to disrupt that market. I think fundamentally, the card payment infrastructure is becoming such a vital part of the different sort of payment options that, it's a bit different depending where you are in the world. If you take my home country, Sweden, I'd say 25% of the payment volume is cash-based. In general, we don't carry cash. I haven't used cash in Sweden for the last 6 months. If you take Mexico as the opposite, 75% of the payment volume in Mexico is still cash-based and 12% is card-based. But I think the trend across the world, given the pretty tough changes within the financial regulatory landscape in terms of anti-money laundering and anti-terrorist funding and things like that, makes most governments and states want to move away from a cash-based society more into an electronic sort of payment society, whether that is card or something else. So I think the card payment infrastructure it's growing very rapidly across most markets, and for that reason you need to make it possible. You need to democratize the ability to take card payments for anyone, no matter the size of the business. It's a good question. I think fundamentally we are, like the entire card payment industry, we are based on a pretty old infrastructure that has been built by many of the card schemes and the banks. And I think that infrastructure, especially if you have a card infrastructure that is chip-based, like you have in Mexico, with that infrastructure comes a lot of security. And I think that's very much reflected in the global fraud numbers that you see. All the markets have implemented EMV and chip cards, see a drastic decrease in fraud. So I think actually the fundamental infrastructure is very, very secure, and I think in general people feel pretty secure, especially with the chip infrastructure. Then from our perspective, since we are regulated by the industry, we abide by all the rules that's being put on us by card schemes and others. But on top of that, we also have another layer of security that the traditional incumbents don't typically have. And those are algorithms looking at each and every transaction coming in, matching everything from location data with other points of data. That gives us another layer of security. So fact of the matter is that if you look at the European card payment industry, where the average fraud rate is around 6 to 8 basis points, iZettle, the average for us in terms of fraud across all markets, including Mexico and Brazil, is below 2 basis points. So I think we're adding a really interesting next layer to security to the industry. Well, the main advantages is obviously the size of your market, and the fact that acceptance is the acceptance levels in Mexico compared to many other markets is so much lower. I think in Europe overall there are roughly 35 to 40 payment terminals per 1,000 inhabitants. You see the same kind of numbers in the US. In Brazil, I think there is around 25 to 30 terminals per 1,000 inhabitants. In Mexico, a country with over 125 million cards, you have 5 payment terminals per 1,000 inhabitants. So I think, for me, that only tells you that the potential in this market is just enormous. And the combination of that with the fact that there are 5 million small businesses in Mexico, they account for 95% of the employment in Mexico and 50% of the total GDP. I think all these numbers together makes Mexico a very interesting market. Well, apparently I didn't learn enough, because every startup is a new challenge, and I think somehow you tend to make many of the mistakes again, but in a different way. So you learn and you avoid some of the mistakes, and you probably leapfrog a few of your previous challenges. But I mean, every new startup is a new challenge, and you can only leverage so much from what you've done previously, in my opinion. So. In my opinion, trying to start a business and being an entrepreneur in sort of the internet sector, if you like, it's never been easier. I mean, the possibility of having some external person code your app or your business idea for a very low amount of money, the possibility of marketing that business across Google Play or through Apple's global infrastructures. I mean, all these things, it gives you a global distribution market. You can market your products on through digital advertising, through Google or some other big player. So trying out your idea has never been easier and less risky. I think the biggest challenge for ITAM students is, like all over the world, it's really to make the decision to try. There are so many people with good ideas sitting and waiting for someone else to do it, or saying, why didn't anyone do this, or why hasn't anyone solved this problem? The biggest challenge for all of us is just to get started and get going. So that's my suggestion to ITAM students. Just jump, see what happens, and in the end, what could possibly go wrong?